It's a right and a privilege for us to have a nursing license. So we have to remember a recurrent theme throughout this presentation is that we have to remember that the public is being protected, not the nursing license first. Now, with that being said, the nursing board is there to help rehabilitate. If a certain nurse has, say, a substance abuse problem, drinking problem, a rash of DWIs or possession or what have you, and they come clean. There are programs, say for instance in my jurisdiction in Texas, they have the TPAP-N program, which is a peer assistance program designed to help keep the nurses clean, to help them take a urinalysis, to report in weekly, and they have to go through classes like, the classes like Alcoholics Anonymous, things like that they put on criteria. But with that being said, there are chances to keep your license. There's many nurses out there who have had a misdemeanor or a felony conviction even that have come back and put in their application, reapplied after a certain suspension or revocation. It is not absolute that you're going to have a revocation or a suspension, but we have to keep that in mind that their exposure is there. Therefore, you need to get a qualified attorney. Let's talk about the importance of having that attorney. When you get an experienced lawyer on board that's going to help you as far as represent you zealously, and I mean in the criminal aspect, which we're going to get into in detail, but also in the administrative aspect, you need somebody with experience. And I'm going to tell the nurses out there that many nurses, just like many regular folk out there, will bust open the yellow pages and they'll look at the business pages and just go down. They're going to find hundreds of lawyers in any major city, and in their phone book, tens upon tens and scores upon scores or hundreds of lawyers. And it just has their name. Sometimes it says what they do, sometimes it doesn't. That's why you have to be very careful in the lawyer selection. Number one, the process is expensive. Number two, it can cost you money. And number three, that's why I recommend sometimes carrying a very modest nursing malpractice policy, because often they can afford you a defense and a deposition, maybe in a peer review, not pay for everything. Certainly, most of the policies don't pay for any criminal acts, but it does apply to helping you with the peer review process and the nursing board. So with that being said, you need somebody that can argue on your behalf and say, hey, this person needs another chance, or this person didn't do it, so keep that in mind. Let's talk about the whole process. Say you have been accused of a nurse has been accused of taking some drugs from a facility or hospital. They've been confronted. They didn't pass a urinalysis, or they made some admissions they shouldn't have. Keep in mind that that employer can turn around and give that information over to law enforcement officials and to the board. So be very careful when you're being questioned. Oftentimes the employer themselves will say, just tell us the truth and you'll be able to keep your job. Well, easier said than done, because often I've seen healthcare professionals, not just nurses but others, who perhaps had been taking drugs or something else occurred, and they were promised that if they came clean that they would be left to keep their job and would not be prosecuted. And then that did not happen. They made their admissions, they were terminated, they were reported to the board, and then the DA or the prosecutor locally got involved. And oftentimes, because this involves narcotics, Schedule 2, 3, 4 narcotics under the Harrison Act, and through the DEA, they can get involved, particularly, most importantly, if it's a scheme or a crime that's alleged that involves crossing state lines. Federal criminal investigation, it sounds and is as serious as can be. So we need to look at that. When we're going through the process, say you then, the police get involved, and many people say, well, if I'm arrested, oftentimes they'll say, well, just tell us, again, don't fall for the whole, just tell us everything and then we'll let you go kind of deal. And let's talk about bail. We've already said, what if you are at an employer's and you've been accused of taking drugs, or any nurse has, and maybe made some admissions of, all right, I did it, I regret it, can I have my job back? No, you're going to be fired and we're calling the police. And this has happened. They have no duty to give you back your job, particularly if it's reasonably clear. You have to understand from the employer's standpoint, when it's reasonably clear that a crime has been committed. Obviously, if they don't alert the law enforcement officials to the crime, they themselves may have some potential liability. So let's say the police came over and arrested you. You're obviously extremely anxious. You don't know what's going on. I would advise each and every one of my colleagues out there, every nurse, to remain silent. And what does that mean? Not say one word? No. That means be polite, be courteous, but when asked any questions regarding the crime that you are being accused of, you say, respectfully, officer, I want to remain silent. Respectfully, I would like to invoke my right to have an attorney and to remain silent. And we're going to cover that's easier said than done, to remain silent for several hours, because the cops, or the police rather, have certain techniques they use also to elicit confessions. And even when you invoked your right to a lawyer, that can change. And what we can have is the problem of the person invoking their rights, but later on waiving their rights. And we're going to talk about that. What are the types of charges that you can be charged with? Well, we've already covered diversion, but also we can be talking about healthcare fraud, being involved as a DON of a home health, and being involved in the billing aspect of the home health, where, say, an ex-employee blew the whistle on the home health. You're there as the DON, and you're ultimately responsible for the care and maybe overseeing some of the billing and day-to-day activities. And say the federal agents raid a home health, and you're there, and you're arrested, and you're accused of being part of a conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud. And this happens, ladies and gentlemen. You have to be careful who you're working for, and also always be ever vigilant about, if it smells funny and you don't have a good feeling about it, you've got to look at, what am I doing at work? What's going on at work? And this can be anything, not just a home health. It can be any healthcare institution or working for a physician. You've got to cover your license, and you've got to protect yourself. When in doubt, even don't wait till you get arrested or you think you're going to get arrested. Consult an attorney, a qualified attorney. So we're talking about some of those scenarios. Also, insurance fraud and theft. This can happen more often than not, particularly in the healthcare arena. More and more we are dealing with the aspect of healthcare insurance fraud or theft, and we're also looking at embezzlement. A lot of the time nurses are just like anybody else. We're not infallible. Some people do commit crimes, and we are in charge of people's, not only their life, but sometimes in charge of their possessions, sometimes in charge of their most intimate information. It's a tremendous responsibility, and that way, that is why the nursing board is always vigilant about, and more cracking down on someone with a criminal past. They're wanting to make sure, the bottom line, in my experience with nursing boards and other medical boards, the bottom line is they're looking for someone that's going to be able to be trustworthy, that they're going to be able to trust with somebody's life, their livelihood, their possessions, and their most detailed or intimate secrets. And so a lot of the time, a gauge for that is to see the crimes that the nursing board really frowns on are the crimes of fraud, the crimes of theft, the crimes, or if you try to lie or cover up about it. These are the things that, in my experience as a trained attorney and as a nurse practitioner, that I have seen in front of the board and in front of the DA. These are the things that they go the hard road for the nurses and try to revoke or suspend for a long time if you lie about a situation. I've had many people say, I did something, I have to report it to the board, and the board respects it. Even though you've made a mistake, that you've come forward, you've been honest, you've been forthright, and you've come forward with an attorney to protect your rights. But